Well, hello there trainers, greetings, KuroBlitz here and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to do a Teams Redone for the Pokemon Horizons anime series cast. This is me doing a little experimentation with the Pokemon that we see from the Generation 9 anime series, as well as some from the Rising Volteccers airship. When it comes to the characters, and I want to see how the story would, change with a little mix and max, and I feel like this will be very interesting to see. So let me know your thoughts and what teams you would give these characters in the comment section down below. Make sure to leave a like, share, comment and subscribe. I appreciate all of your support. So without further ado, let's get it started. As for Lico's team, I would give her Meowscarada, Hatterene, Feraligatr, Mousehold, Flareon and Aerodactyl. I feel like Lico's Pokemon are fine. I would give her, a Pokemon from the Legend ZA, that being the starter of Feraligatr. And I feel like, instead of Cedian having, she would be the one to have it and therefore have Mega Evolution. As for Roy, I would give him Skeledirge, Kilowattrel, Dragalge, Meganium, Vaporeon and Mega Mawile. Once again, giving him a starter from ZA being the other Johto starter. I feel like, he could also have, a mega potential Pokemon. And he would have his Mawile. I feel like, Mawile would fit him very well. And it kind of goes against, Sableye as a counterpart. And it's Fairy type. I think it's perfect to, battle the Black Rayquaza. And Lico having Flareon and, Roy having Vaporeon, that leads to Dot having Jolteon. And Dot's team, she would also have Mega Sableye, and she would have Shuckle from the Brave Olivine airship, and her Pokemon would also be that of Quaquaval, Tinkaton, and Emboar. I feel like this would be a very unique team for Dot, so that way all of the Volteccers kids, they would have a Cantonian evolution, and I feel like it would be like a great gift that they could have from Penny from Team Star. As for the fourth kid, that being Uruto, I feel like Uruto would be a psychic specialist in this hypothetical what if for Pokemon Horizons. He would have Wynaut, that's the partner from Sodayo or Violet, whatever his name is. He would have Zato and Medicham from Kalch, and I feel like he would be the one to have Arbor Rouge, and I also would give Uruto a Rapska and a Mega Slowbro. I feel like Slowbro will be a very fitting Pokemon to be his Mega. Now you must be wondering what happens to Dragonite. Well, I want to give Dragonite to Anne, because Anne having Samurott and Sandslash, those are Japanese prefecture mascot Pokemon, and I feel like Anne has the potential to, have more of them. So I give her Dragonite and Hisuian Samurott. I will keep the Sandslash. I will give her an Alolan Golem, and I also will give her a Cantonian Executor and a Cantonian Ninetales. I think these are a very fitting team for an Indigo Academy trainer. Speaking of trainers, now with a Meteo, I decided to give them the Shiny Zygarde, Iron Valiant, Corviknight, Cerulege, Farigiraf, and Kabutops. These last four Pokemon all have an armor-like ability, so I feel like they will be very fitting. And yes, these characters in this version of Horizons, they would have Paradox Pokemon. Iron Valiant, it's the one that really does fit a Meteo the most. It's a Violet Pokemon, just like Cerulege. And now for a Meteo's, partners, I feel like in terms of, Zerk would have Male Oikalone, Nidoking, Staraptor, Great Tusk, Slitherwing, and Crabominable. So I give him two male Pokemon, a flying Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, two Pest Paradoxes, and an Alolan Pokemon that can Mega Evolve. And these will be counterparts to Onius Pokemon, which will be the female Oikalone, Nidoqueen, Pidgeot, the counterpart, Staraptor that can Mega Evolve, Golisopod, the Alola Pokemon that can Mega Evolve like Crabominable, and instead of Great Tusk and Slitherwing, she would have Iron Threads and Iron Moth. And speaking of Paradoxes and the Explorers, I would give Hamber both Iron Jugulus and Roaring Moon. He would keep the Dusknoir, and since everyone is going to have like a legend starter in some way, shape or form, I don't want to leave Serperior out of the question, so I feel like Serperior would be more fitting for, Hamber, given how Dot has Emboar, and Anne would give Samurott. So I feel like, it would be very fitting for Serperior to go to this regal person. The Nosepass and the Slugma from the Brave Olivine, they would become Hamber's Pokemon, and they would evolve further into a Nosepass and a Macargo. Now changing focus from the Explorers, I want to tackle the Rising Volteccers, but before the actual member Diana. Diana in this verse, she would have a Shiny Rabombi, a Noctowl, Goldengo, Arcanine, and 2 Paradox Pokemon being Iron Leaves and Walking Wake. I think it's very fitting that, you know, she has a Grass from the future, Water from the past, kind of balances out the present, that it's Arcanine. As for the actual members of the team, I feel like Freed would keep Captain Pikachu and Mega Charizard Y. However, Freed always felt like a very Ash-coded character, so I feel like he should have Ash-coded Pokemon in some way, shape or form. I feel like Freed would be a great character to have, you know, Gold Misty, Espeon as a nod to Red, Rhyperior, it's very monstrous, and I feel like he would be a nice nod to, you know, the rival being Gary, and I feel like he would have an Annihilate given how Ash had a Primate during the original run of the anime. This, in another world, would be like an Ash Ketchum team, and I feel like Freed kinda capitalizes on that. Now, going to the engineer of the Brave Olivine, let's go to Orla. Orla, she would evolve her Elekid and her Carkol, and she would have an Electabuzz and a Colossal, and she would keep, you know, Metagross. The Pommy would become hers to be a partner for Electabuzz in terms of engineering. She would do Dragons, being Hydrapple and Baxcalibur. And given how she's given a Hydrapple in this hypothetical, what I would like to do would be to give the other 2 Applin evolutions to the other 2 members of the Rising Volteccers. Case in point, Murdoch. I feel like Murdoch would be a great character to have, you know, Flapple. He will still have Flapple. He will still have Lycanroc, Alcremie, and, you know, Sinistea. Or Poltegeist. One of the 2. And I would give him, you know, also another cooking Pokemon, food-oriented, being Clawitzer, given how I gave Roy a potential Mega in Dragalge. It will not Mega, but it's a potential Mega. And another potential Mega, it will be Eelektross. Eelektross on Murdoch's team, at least to me, it does make a lot of sense. And for Molly, I would give her a Flapple in tandem with the other Pokemon from the airship, being, you know, a Alolan Muck, Frostlass as an evolution from the Snorunt, and, you know, her Chansey becomes a Blissey. As for other mons, I feel like Manectric would be very interesting for her to have. It's a very Lumiose-coded Pokemon, so for Legends ZA promotion it kinda works. And I feel like in terms of, you know, soothing the environment and being like a healing factor, I feel like Chimecho would also be very fitting. Funny enough, I feel like these two, Molly and Murdoch, are the only characters that don't have any Gen 9 Pokemon. Now going to the owner of the ship per se, Ludlow. For Ludlow, I decided to give him Barbaracle, Omastar, Blastoise, Tatsugiri, Quagsire. So as you can see, he has 4 potential options to use Mega Evolution. And I decided to keep Quagsire as is, and given how I gave a Kabutops to a Meteo, I feel like, you know, Ludlow having Omastar, it does make a lot of sense, and Liko has Aerodactyl, so there's that. Now going for the other characters who support our heroes, we have Perrin from the Kitakami portion of the story. I feel like Perrin, she would have, you know, the other Paradox, you know, Beasts and Swords. She would have Iron Boulder and Raging Bolt. She would get the Blood Moon Ursaluna. She would have the other 2 Eevees, being, you know, Leaf Sui and Typhlosion. I think it would be very fitting for her to have these Pokemon. Geeta would have a team of poison types. I did a Scarlet and Violet Season 1 series, or at least an attempt to it, and I always felt like Geeta would be a perfect poison type champion with Petulant, Sneasler, Overquill, Revavroom, Grafaiai, and Glamora. I feel like Geeta kind of fits the vibe of being a poison type specialist, but not in the same vein that the others are. And now let's go to the Mesagoza Academy, the one responsible for the Scarlet Door. Mesagoza Academy, the one responsible for the Scarlet Door, that being Nemona. As for Nemona, I decided to give her a Blaze Breed Paldean Tauros, a Cyclizar, a Bombardier, and also Earthworm, Cloth, and Dondozo. So 4 of Nemona's Pokemon of Legends route. And she would have Tauros because she uses one in the intro of the games, and Cyclizar to, you know, echo what's coming next. But I do think it's fitting. She has a lot of types. She has Rock, Steel, Water, Fighting Fire, Normal Dragon, and Dark Flying. I think it's great for Nemona to have these Pokemon. Yes, she doesn't have Pawmot, but I feel like in terms of the anime, that can pass. There is no actual need for a Pawmot. Like, we have a Pawmi that becomes a Pawmo. I don't think there is like an actual need, guys. However, as for Arven, he will be the one responsible for, the way I see it, the Mesagoza Academy. People who want to do battle, like trainers and coordinators, they go to the Scarlet Dorm. People who want to do other careers, like breeders or connoisseurs, they would go to the Violet Dorm. It's not a guy-girl situation. Arven would have 3 grass types, being of, Scovillain, Toadscruel, and Victreebel. That would be his potential Mega. He would have Greedent, Mabosstiff, of course, and he would have a shiny Koraidon. I think this would be, the way that you will utilize the mascots for the story. It would be Arven. The story starts as a sequel to the games. Arven has Koraidon already. As for Miraidon, though, I feel like Miraidon would be the one that would be given to Penny, because Penny is the technology expert, she's the hacker. We have Team Star that, are a bunch of ruffians, and they all also ride on Cyclozars. Penny being the 6th member / leader, her having Miraidon, and I think it would make a lot of sense for her to have Miraidon. As for the other, and that way, Penny has Miraidon, Koraidon is Arven, and Cyclozar is Nemona. Spoilers, Carmine and Kieran are not in this list, nor is the Blueberry Elite Four. As for Penny, she will keep Sylveon, and it's a nod to Ortega. Scrafty, it's a nod to, the Dark of Giacomo and the fighting of, Eri. Female Pyroar, as the leader of the pack, it's a nod to Melly. And Scolipede being like a steed and an actual, rideable Pokemon like Team Star, it has the poison Starmie. So we have the nod for Team Star there, like literally. As for another supporting character, I feel like we need to talk about Emma. Emma, she would be between her X and Y and ZA, like middle time skip. This is like year 2, 3 Emma. Emma would have Esper. I feel like she would have Shiny Zeraora as her other cat. And she would be the owner of Yellow Blast, that being Roy's Shiny Lucario. I feel like she would be the one to have this Pokemon. And as for the reconstruction of Lumio City, I feel like she would have Golurk and Excadrill as, Pokemon from the ground attribute and the construction of the place. And I feel like she could also have a Camerupt to, even things out. And what's Kalos without a proper home representation, right? I feel like these are very cool Pokemon. This Emma would probably not have any ties with Xerosic. She would have the expansion suit, and she would be a detective in the Looker Bureau, but I don't think she would have ties with Xerosic. If anything, I feel like the expansion suit should be something more that Spinel from the Explorers tried to do with her. So there is no need for a Mega Malamar. And now going to the Explorers Full Throttle. As for Sango, Coral, whatever you want to name her, I feel like Sango, she would have Hawlucha, Shiny Delphox, Pheasantipity, Brambleghast, Screamtail, and Iron Bundle. You have like 2 Paradox Pokemon, past and future. You have a Paldean species in Brambleghast. You have a flying Pokemon that can Mega Evolve in Hawlucha, and then you have Shiny Kalos starter and one of the Loyal 3. And this kinda goes hand in hand with her counterpart, at being Onix or Cedian. Skarmory, flying Pokemon that can Mega Evolve like Hawlucha. Shiny Chestnut, Kalos starter like Delphox. Okidogi, Loyal 3 member like Pheasantipity. Garganacl, Paldean species like Brambleghast. Brute Bonnet and Iron Hands are past and future paradoxes like Screamtail and Iron Bundle. Now as for Calch or Agate, Calch, she would have, Greninja, Shiny, because of the other / Flying Bird, it would be Hespatra. The past and future paradoxes would be Fluttermane and Iron Thorns, and she would have, Okidogi. No, she would have Monkey Dory, I'm sorry, from the Loyal 3. That way, she's the mind, Onix is the muscle, and the beauty would be Sango. I gave her a Venusaur because Ludlow has Blastoise, and Charizard went to Freed. Now, for the new leader of the Explorers, we would have Spinel. Spinel would still have Umbreon, and that way you would have the 3 evolutions from Kanto for the kids, Espeon for Freed, because Spinel has Umbreon, the Sinnoh ones are for Perrin, and Sylveon is for Penny. Instead of a Magnezone, I gave Spinel a Sandy Shocks. Given how a Meteor has a Paradox from the future, Spinel would have one from the past. There is no co-sharing in terms of timelines of the paradoxes here. Spinel would mock the hero Pokemon in some way, because instead of Kleavor he would have Scizor, instead of Arboliva he would have Hisuian Lemon, he would have Basculegion. So he's mocking Sun and Moon by using Legends Arceus material. And now for the former leader of the Explorers, that being, Gibeon. Gibeon would have a team of Dark-type Pokemon. Gibeon's team would be the Ruinous Treasures of Shiyu, Ting Lucian, Wuxian. He would have Yveltal instead of Zygarde, and he would have a shiny Unbound Hoopa. And this kind of leads to, if he has Yveltal and a Meteor as Zygarde, who has Xerneas? Well, that would have to be Ristal. Ristal will be the Xerneas trainer, as well as a shiny Deoxys. Ristal will be the Xerneas trainer, as well as a shiny Deoxys, in tandem with Black Rayquaza. Black Rayquaza would be her Pokemon. I also gave her a Heatran to cover more types and to be a potential Mega. She would be the trainer of both Ogerpon and Terrapagos. So in terms of her team, she would have Fire Steel and Normal. And basically all of them, really. And this leads to the last character I want to talk about, that being, the one that founded Horizons' plot, that being Lucius, the Ancient Adventurer. Lucius would keep the same Pokemon that he does in canon, but instead of Rayquaza, I decided to give him an Alolan Raichu. Because that way, Lucius would have 6 Pokemon, all dual types, and their third types being their Terra types, it kinda combines into all of the 18 types necessary. The Dark Flying Moltres would have Ghost Terra, the Bug Rock Dragon Gouging Fire would have Fighting Terra, the Normal Grass Arboliva would have Ground Terra, the Water Ice Slappers would have Poison Terra, and the Electric Psychic Raichu would have Fairy Terra. I feel like this would be very, very fitting for, to be Lucius's team. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree. Make sure to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe to the video. Again, support, always appreciated. Thank you so much, trainers. Let's see each other on Pokemon Day. And thank you so much for everything. And KuroBlitz out.